Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome everyone, I am absolutely thrilled to have you here for today's explainer. Listen, if you have ever organized a corporate event, a workshop, or some massive conference, you know the pressure is just immense. You basically have to be part logistical genius and part mind reader. Well, today, we're going to completely transform your event planning process by focusing on a crucial and honestly often overlooked element that literally dictates how your whole event actually flows.
So, picture this. You've just signed the contract for a gorgeous, state-of-the-art main auditorium. The lighting? Perfect. The stage? Grand. You finally breathe a massive sigh of relief. But here is the hard truth. In your planning process, you've really only solved half the puzzle. You see, we all have this natural initial bias toward the main room, right? Because that's where the big keynote happens. But think about your delegates for a second. Where do they actually connect? Where do they process all that amazing information they just heard? Event planning is stressful enough, but the true secret to a wildly successful event doesn't just happen under those stage lights. It actually happens in the spaces in between.
To get us there, here's our structured roadmap for today. First, we're looking beyond the main room. Second, designing the delegate experience. Third, the event planning process. And finally, avoiding common mistakes.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Beyond the Main Room. Let's look at exactly why your delegates physically need to step away from that formal agenda.
First things first, it is absolutely essential we define the foundational terminology we're working with today. A lot of people use these terms interchangeably, but honestly, they serve entirely different purposes in your layout. So breakout spaces are fluid. They're dynamic. Think open foyers, comfortable lounges, refreshment zones. They invite that serendipitous, natural networking. On the flip side, breakout rooms are structured and enclosed. They're your separate spaces with closed doors used for private meetings, group work, or confidential discussions. Both are incredibly useful, but knowing the difference is step one in mastering your venue plan.
And that brings us to a fundamental rule of planning. A successful business event is rarely just about the main room. Honestly, that main room-only mindset is completely outdated. Think about how we as adults actually learn and retain information. Sure, we absorb a ton of data during a great keynote, but we solidify that learning through informal conversation, by comparing notes with peers or sharing real-world workplace examples. If you don't provide the physical environment for those conversations to happen, you are seriously shortchanging your attendees' learning experience.
Moving right along to Section 2, Designing the Delegate Experience. Let's explore your strategic toolkit. And this brilliantly illustrates the options you have. As an event planner, you essentially have 5 distinct categories of breakout spaces to play with. It's like a giant puzzle. You've got your open areas for informal chats and a quick mental reset. You have private rooms for coaching or maybe confidential legal talks. Catering areas, well, those are specifically carved out for food and beverage flow. Quiet spaces are vital for reflection or just taking a private phone call back to the office. And of course, in today's world, hybrid support spaces are absolutely necessary for tech checks and remote presenter prep. These are the 5 tools in your architectural toolkit.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how we can map those specific tools directly to your event type. Just notice the direct relationships. If you're running a big conference, your top priority is networking zones and peer exchange. But if you're planning a legal mediation or a professional services event, you instantly need to pivot toward private, confidential rooms and entirely separate waiting areas to manage arrivals and privacy. For training and workshops, you're going to need group activity areas. You can literally use this framework to instantly identify the exact breakout setup your unique use case demands.
So why does all this matter? Well, when you build these spaces into your early planning process, the impact on the delegate is profound. It actively reduces delegate fatigue during those long, multi-day events by giving them a much-needed mental reset between heavy sessions. It vastly improves catering traffic flow, meaning it keeps the food and coffee away from your expensive presentation equipment and eliminates those dreaded overcrowded lines. But more than anything, it makes networking feel natural and organic, rather than forced and rushed in the back of some crowded auditorium.
Okay, on to Section 3, the event planning process. Let's turn all this theory into highly actionable steps.
Consider this your masterclass checklist for vetting literally any potential venue. Step 1. You've got to assess your delegate numbers and the event duration. Larger groups over multiple days need significantly more space, so they don't feel claustrophobic. Step 2. Define your privacy, networking, and group needs based on the event type we just talked about. Step 3. Determine your catering flow. Where will the food actually go, and how on earth will those endless, highly specific dietary requirements be managed clearly without creating a massive traffic jam? And finally, Step 4. Confirm the tech. Do you have the AV, the reliable Wi-Fi, and the hybrid support required in these secondary spaces? Follow this sequence and I promise you, you will never be caught off guard.
To take it a step further, here is your rapid-fire screenshot-worthy advice. Before you sign any contract, ask the vendor these exact questions. Are the breakout areas actually included in the base price? Can catering specifically be served outside the main room? Is the layout actually conducive to natural networking? Is there reliable Wi-Fi extending into these zones? And hey, are they fully accessible? And crucially, is there dedicated on-site support available to help you manage these areas during the event?
Finally, Section 4, avoiding common mistakes. These are the common pitfalls that even seasoned planners fall into.
So I want you to think about this for a second. Based on everything we've just discussed regarding the delegate journey and your workflow, what do you think is the single biggest mistake you can make when booking a venue?
The answer? Leaving breakout spaces until the very last minute. Planners finalize the agenda, suddenly realize they need 3 extra rooms for group work, and then completely panic because the venue is already fully booked. No way, you can't do that. Breakout needs absolutely must be a priority from day one. They have to be discussed during the initial venue selection process, not as some panicked afterthought once the ink is dry.
And there are a few other common pitfalls to watch out for. As we established, choosing a venue only because the main room looks great, total recipe for a disjointed event. Not allowing enough space for catering to flow results in frustrated, hungry delegates just hovering awkwardly over empty coffee stations. Ignoring privacy needs for VIP stakeholders or legal clients can actually compromise your event's integrity. And finally, overlooking noise and acoustics. An open networking space sounds fantastic in theory, right? But if bad acoustics amplify every single coffee cup clink into a deafening roar, your delegates won't hear a word each other says. It completely ruins that natural connection you tried so hard to foster.
To solve a lot of this, our source material points to vendors who actually specialize in these exact logistical challenges. For example, Karstens provides purpose-built venues across major Australian CBDs. We're talking Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Perth, and Adelaide. They offer spaces that already include those flexible layouts, the built-in AV, the dedicated breakout areas, and the on-site professional event coordination required to execute the exact planning steps we just covered. It just removes a tremendous amount of venue-related friction. So the crucial point is perfectly summarized by this insight from our source. A well-planned breakout space can make an event feel smoother, more professional, and more comfortable for delegates. It literally shifts your event from feeling like a rigid, exhausting lecture to a dynamic, engaging, and highly professional experience, where every single need of the attendee has been anticipated and met.
I want to leave you with this final thought to take into your very next planning session. If the main room is the heart of your event, pumping that core message out to your audience, are your breakout spaces the lungs? Are they the places where your delegates can actually take a breath, process the ideas, and keep the energy of the whole event alive? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep designing incredible experiences, and I will see you next time.